Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this virtual live session brought to you by People Matters in association with Pearson. I am Anushri Sharma, Senior Manager, Research and Content Strategist with People Matters, and it is my privilege to welcome you all to this exciting session and be your host for the day. I would like to thank each one of you for taking out time to join us for this exclusive discussion that we have curated especially for you. So today's discussion will focus on the theme building talent for the next wave of growth. If building critical skills was a business priority for leaders earlier, today, with rapid digital transformation, it has become a business survival necessity. As the nature of some jobs fundamentally have changed and others have simply become obsolete, people are counting on their employers to help them remain relevant and find their place in the future of work. In this virtual session, we'll look at elevating the current skilling strategy with the right set of tools and technology to promote learning which is personalized, scalable, and future facing. Now, for our audience, quick housekeeping before we start today's session. If you have any question during the session, please feel free to use the chat window. We'll bring them up towards the end of the session during the 15 minutes that we have reserved for Q&A. So stay tuned to your chat box and keep posting the questions you have for our speakers. And now, moving towards the session, I am very excited to invite our speakers for the session today. We have the pleasure of joining with us Grace Yip, Managing Director at Accenture. Welcome, Grace. It's great to have you on board with us.
Hi, I'm very glad to be with everyone today. My name is Grace, and I'm a managing director at Accenture. I've done a number of different roles. In the 18 years I've been with Accenture, and currently I'm a senior client account lead for our health and public services business. I also lead our inclusion and diversity agenda in Southeast Asia, and not too long ago, I was the head of HR for Southeast Asia. So lovely to be here today with everyone.
Thank you, Grace. Thanks for joining us. And with Grace, we also have with us Simone Wright, who is the Vice President, Human Resources at Pearson. Welcome, Simone. It's great to have you joining us today.
Thank you, Anu, and thank you to everyone. I'm delighted to be here with all of you today, and of course with Grace as we explore this topic together.
Perfect. Thanks, Grace, and thanks, Simone, for joining us today. And we really look forward to an exciting session today. And as I mentioned, that the theme for today is building talent for the next wave of growth. So, Simone and Grace, the question that I have, and I would want to open this session is, given the fact that the countries around the world are facing talent crunch, so if you could help us understand what are some of the signals that we should look out for, either short-term and long-term recovery in this talent market.
I'm happy to kind of kick off the discussion, right? And a couple of thoughts as we, experience the pandemic, as it continues to be very visible and very present, right? And I think in every country, each country is experiencing its own demand supply challenges, and also how they are facing out the pandemic, right? So I think a lot of what we are experiencing in the talent markets are very, very local. I'm not sure if the conversation should be around recovery or more an evolution, right? Because I think the pandemic has shown us that being relevant and having the right skills is really the new currency in our economy. And therefore, while we might be experiencing different stages of the pandemic in different countries, I think the talent market will continue to evolve. There will be new situations that will evolve globally as well as locally. So to kind of embrace the fact that our talent evolution will continue, right? And it will remain vibrant and exciting. I think what we do see in the market is that there will be winners and losers, right? And that gulf or that gulf across the talent of across talent will widen. And so it's really important more to reflect on what needs to be done, right, at an individual level as a person who you need to think about how you build and continue to shape your skills to remain relevant in the market to think about continuous learning and development, because we definitely do see digital skills, for example, kind of the price point, multiplying very quickly, even just across the year, right? So how you stay relevant? How do you see where those opportunities are in that market? How do you find time to be curious and to continue to learn every day, so that your skills and your abilities remain very market relevant? I think for companies, it is indeed a very interesting time, right, to actually rethink the broader strategy towards not just how you acquire and recruit talent, but really to think about talent management in a far more integrated way, right? Because the talent that you have with you, there's a sense of responsibility, and also a sense that you have talent that actually knows how to work in your firm and in your context. So how do you more proactively look at developing this talent and pivoting people at scale? That is so important, right? So we also embrace a bit of a circular economy thinking around talent. It's also a great opportunity to tap global talent. And today, I think with companies that are more digitally enabled, the ability to think of the global talent pool as your source of talent creates a great opportunity. And then finally, I think for governments around the world, right? How do you enable the connections across the ecosystems? How do you enable reskilling of mid-career at scale? How do you, bring all the partners together, right, to be able to continue to grow the talent in the country? I think that is an incredible opportunity as the talent landscape continues to evolve.
Yeah.
Very rightly said, Grace. It's not about talent recovery, but talent evolution as of now. I'll come back to you, Simone. Simone, what's your view about this talent recovery and talent evolution in the current
Yeah.
context?
Thanks, Anu. And look, I was listening to Grace and thinking, exactly what Grace was saying it was so true. And I would say exactly similar things to what Grace has just really talked about. I think, in terms of right now, we are seeing huge demand for key talent across a range of sectors and a range of areas. But in some of those areas, the demand is exceeding supply. And so we do have to understand that we're in a very important talent market where we do need to look at those signals and understand our business in the context of that broader macroeconomic changes that we're seeing. Rapid job displacement in some industries where people are just simply, their skill sets are becoming a little bit obsolete. And so, but the opportunity to retrain there is very strong if we think about their skills in a broad sense, not just in what the jobs they do, but actually what are the skills they bring to the table and how can they retrain and regrow in an area that is demanding skill and talent in those, in different sectors and in different levels in the organization. I think job displacement is something we can look to and think about how do we solve for that one. And I think you're right, Grace, in terms of talked about the lockdowns and that does crunch us a little bit. We're not seeing the movement in mobility that we once had to be able to tap talent and say, well, I've got a really big problem here and I know someone. And we are absolutely playing in a global talent field. Suddenly we've got more boundaries, but in some ways we've got less boundaries because we've got access to that broader range of talent across the world. And it's how do we deploy that? So, and we also expect a lot of productivity within our businesses. We're expecting more and more from our people. And so it's about understanding that. So I think the question for us is also about how do we retain our talent and how do we create the environments as HR professionals in our own organizations that really talk to people's uniqueness and the skills that they bring, but also the way that they want to work now. Because the equation, I think, for us is to think about the new ways of working. And it's, to offer things like upskilling and the programs and the opportunities that we know are so important for people to stay current. We said skills is the new currency. So we have to enable our people to access those skills and have the ability to retrain in those ways. We have to offer flexible working arrangements like we've never seen. So personalized ways of addressing those unique needs that we have. And I think the conditions for success, we've got to value our big, our critical talent. We've got to value our whole talent system within organizations and really point them to how they can continue to grow within our own context, or help them to build skills that are relevant for the future of work in those areas that, Grace talked about. We know digital skills are, incredibly they've increased in Australia. The job rates and advertising for digital skills has increased 200%. And anyone who's got a problem-solving capability can demand a premium. So when we're seeing sort of statistics like that and greater job ads than, but less applicants, we really have to think about how do we attract, maintain our own talent within our own organizations, I think. But that's a great opportunity for a talent manager, and it's a great opportunity for HR to really make a contribution to solving this problem, which I think is systemic, and it is in a lot of businesses right now.
Thanks, Simone, for sharing that. And you mentioned a couple of challenges that the organizations are facing right now, be it productivity, be it job displacement, and be it the evolution of digital transformation around the globe. Grace, I'll come back to you, and I would want to understand your Accenture's key priority when it comes to skilling. What does some of the priorities look like for Accenture right now?
Yeah, so I think a couple of the newer things that we are doing, right, is really to invest in a lot of integrated forecasting in a very holistic approach, right? Because, for us as a professional services company, I mean, where we thrive with our clients is our ability to bring some of the leading edge skills to our clients to be able to lead them through change, right? So for us, the ability to do integrated forecasting and to be more precise around the talent needs that we have is fundamentally very core to our ability to build those skills, as well as to hire in the right talent at the right time, right? So the way we are thinking about some of this around integrated forecasting is leveraging a lot more applied intelligence, right? Integrating data that is in the market, in countries, external, but also a better view of the talent that we have, the skills that we have. And the challenges that organizations have always perennially had with skills is that you always try and understand, right, the shape and the profile of your people through a skills lens. And traditionally, a lot of approaches are time consuming, and by the time you kind of get a sense of talent, you almost have to start all over again, right? And in today's world, where we operate in a far more agile world, we've really embraced applied intelligence, algorithms, and approaches that gives us a lot more certainty and clarity around the just-in-time sort of skills that people have today around the world. And we have about 500,000 people across a fairly broad sort of a job landscape, right? And it's far easier for people to update their skills, and we have, through the use of what we call specialization at scale, allow us to have a more consistent approach to understanding skills and their specializations, which is actually a cluster of skills that you need to have to be able to do a job well, right? It also allows people to think about where they aspire to be, because we are always looking at the next career opportunity, the next career development, right? And if we can offer these opportunities to our people within the firm, and Accenture is well placed to do that, and people can aspire and also understand what specializations they need to develop, what learning they can access, and we can provide that in an integrated way, then I think people feel supported to become better versions of themselves and keep recreating newer versions of who they are. And so the combination of leveraging, applied intelligence through specialization at scale to understand our talent and to also give clarity to people who aspire to continue to develop their careers also gives a view to leaders to understand sort of what talent profiles we have, right? And in HR, there are new roles like the talent futurist role, that is very specifically looking at the 24 months, 18 months horizon, working with business leaders to prioritize what sort of skills we need to develop and a more integrated talent strategy approach, right, to skill development. And maybe my last comment would be there's also a huge opportunity for us to also work with leaders in the firm to really rethink the mindset that we think about talent, right? Because sometimes as we grow, we always think, okay, how do we hire the best talent? How do I get the best talent? Let's just go out and hire, right? But I think, thinking about our talent supply chain in a more integrated fashion, helping people understand that there's a lot of aspirations in people in our firm, and we need to fulfill those aspirations and to think about it in a more integrated way around developing talent, building those skills, and then repurposing people into new roles, right? That they may not have had experience in the past, but they have adjacent skills that can be enhanced. I think that is also a fundamental shift in the way as leaders we need to think, right? So that entire integrated forecasting to sort of demand management approach is something that we're taking very seriously.
Sure, sure. Thanks, thanks, Grace. That I what I understand is basically taking a more predictive approach towards skilling than a reactive one. Thanks for sharing that, Simon. And before Grace, I'll come back to you and understand more details about the kind of skills that Accenture is looking out for. Simon, I would want to understand from you is some of the red flags that you see in the ecosystem right now. I know you already covered some of them, but I specific when it comes to the speed of upskilling and reskilling. What are some of the red flags that you see in the ecosystem?
Yeah, thanks, Anu. I think it's a great question, and it's one that we have tried to research and study. I think across Pearson for some time now, being a learning organisation and really being very focused on how do we support the world to learn in this respect. I mean, I guess the question I always ask myself is how much time do you spend doing what you love at work? And helping to really unpack those areas where, and perhaps if you're watching this and you want to, engage in the chat, just, how much time do you think you personally spend doing what you love at work? And how much time do your teams do that? And how much more capacity do you have to learn? And I suspect that when we think about this, the question is really a little bit confronting. Perhaps some of us don't spend the time that we would like to develop ourselves because we are so on that productivity journey, which says more with less, or we're trying to be, really efficient in our roles. And we don't see upskilling in the way that we possibly should. And I think Grace's point around the mindset is a really critical one because, one of the challenges is ourselves. And that is creating the amount of time that we need to upskill. And, if I look at some of the training statistics over time, I know, some of the predictions that I've read, 3 weeks you need to dedicate to actually upskilling yourself. Now, how much time do you realistically spend doing that? So, I think it is about sort of inverting the lens a little bit and understanding why we have these blind spots, which is, seeing jobs as sort of prefabricated, fixed in things that we put people into, instead of sort of seeing how could we change the way we look at this and think about that it's the business system itself is very adaptive. It's exceptionally fluid. We've got new challenges coming at us all the time. And I think we need to be as adaptive in our ecosystem and, in our HR systems to enable that upskilling process to occur and to see it as part of work, not, in addition to work, which is what some of our people have said that they have seen, that program. And I can tell you, the first thing to drop when you get a really high priority in an organization, because I run a lot of these programs online, is that you'll drop the learning program. You might, and so I think it's about how do we integrate that into the flow of work, and how do we think about it differently, not just for ourselves, but as a system that supports that, appropriately. We really need quite targeted, talented investment in systems, and I think we've done really well during COVID to sort of be quite respectful and quite, thoughtful about where we do talent investment. And I think from those organizations that have continued to invest in talent and have continued to invest in that upskill program, they are the ones that are coming out of this situation much better and much prepared for the future, because their people are engaged in this equation with them, and are adapting and working their skills towards the really important business challenges that we have to solve in today's business world. So I think it is at the ecosystem level and the individual level that we need to really start to have that open conversation about, work. We go to work to learn, not learn how to work anymore. So it's about thinking about work in a different way and the purpose of actually what we're doing.
Sure, Simone. And Grace, I would also want to take your understanding. Like Simone rightly said, that it's all about individual and the ecosystem. Like you also mentioned about the mindset that an individual needs to inculcate when it comes to skilling. But Simone raised a very important point about the investments in learning and skilling from the organization itself. And most of the time, the budgets when it comes to skilling is usually dropped when there is some sort of cost cutting. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Simone brought up many great points, and I found myself nodding a lot as she was talking. And this idea of investing in people, especially when the world is going through a challenging economic landscape, is for some firms may be counterintuitive, right? But I would argue that by investing in people, you actually give people hope, right? And I think that there is no better time to give people hope than now, right? In the belief that people are still important, the people that you have in your firm is still important, and that they will continue to be important contributors to your organization, right? I'll say for Accenture, we've always maintained a significant investment in learning and in talent. The question is really what sort of solutions and also what sort of priorities, right? So to your earlier question around priorities and that investment, I think we've always invested very broadly across, I would say, functional priorities. So things like, for example, Julie, our CEO, put together what we call a talent quotient kind of technology quotient priority, right, where everybody needed to make sure that regardless of your function, whether you're in corporate functions or you're business facing, you needed to have an adequate level of technology understanding, because the world is enabled by technology, right? So this whole TQ program was championed by her, and she led very much the sense of how important it is to keep learning. Right now, of course, as you get into the technology practices and the technology organization, there's a lot more in terms of certification enablement around journey to cloud and all the other key things, right? But that spectrum of learning, right, where technology is important, everyone needs to embrace it. I think we're also moving towards thinking about where the world is moving from us towards sustainability, right? So, I think it's only a matter of time where things like sustainability quotient will become something that we will continue to invest in, right? The other way that we're thinking about learning is also, enabling some of the new jobs that we see a tremendous growth, right? So, there is a job at what we call client account leads, right? They are the ones who actually partner very closely with the clients to be able to bring the best of Accenture across our entire suite of abilities, right? And offerings. And this is such an important role, right? Because as we partner with our clients, we want to be really great business partners, right? And this is an investment that the firm is making to really build up and to develop and to scale and double the number of client account leads that we have, right? So it's a multi-year investment, thinking about how we build very rounded client account leads. How do you help people to be able to truly partner through the good days and the bad days, right? And that, I think, is a great investment to make sure that, apart from having all the requisite functional skills, that we also have the ability to partner for success, right? In a very, very different world. And then in the space of leadership, I think, we've always looked at developing talent very broadly, right? Because for us, growth is hinged on making sure that we have the right leadership talent across the different aspects of our business, but also in each geography, right? Because everyone looks to local leaders to be able to kind of champion the new ways of working and to really grow with our clients, right? But one of the things that, in particular, I was very thrilled to see is this program called Heartware, right? It is a really a focus on, the emotional quotient, right, and shaping how important this is, right? Because it's about leading our people with compassion. It's also about, leading with our clients with compassion, and then having this emotional intelligence, right? And there's a lot of personalized coaching that is required as part of this program. And so I'm always encouraged to see sort of just the variety of initiatives that kind of span across a fairly broad horizon, right? And then the constant investment, because we know that we are here to stay, to continue to work with our clients, right, through the good days and bad.
Thanks. Thanks, Grace, for sharing all these best practices that Accenture is leading in the organization. Simon, I would also want to understand from you, we have, like Grace shared, a lot of practices that Accenture is leading, and there are a lot of organizations who are investing into skilling. There are different practices that they are leading to accelerate the pace of skilling. Now, given the fact that the shelf life of skills is also getting shorter, so how organizations can better prepare themselves for this dynamic nature of skilling and manage the new uncertainties in acquiring these new skills?
Absolutely. And it's not getting any slower anytime soon, is it really? Unlearning is a skill. And I think we need to encourage that skill because it's important to cultivate, because some of the practices that we've learned in the past are no longer serving us in this new world. And so it's as much about unlearning things like our fixed mindsets on areas that we might need to focus on, unlearning habitual ways of working which haven't worked for us. But we've been able to show through COVID that these new ways of working do work for people, and people can integrate into their lives new ways of approaching work. So I think, thinking about that in a different way, unlearning outdated team dynamics where you have to be in the same room. We're now leveraging incredible different ways of working with our hybrid workplaces and, our dispersed work teams, and we're crossing boundaries and cultures and different dynamics. And whilst there are some very local issues, I think it's about learning how best to perform in those environments is something that we want to think about. We know technology and digital skills are incredibly important. And Grace, I commend Accenture for the work that is happening in that area, because we all absolutely need those skills alongside what we always know as the human skills. The heart program that you talked about, they need to live equally in this new world. We need to humanize, and we talk about it. I used to have a saying: if the soft skills are so easy, then why are they so hard? And in an organization, this is one thing. It's just, there's science, and unlike algorithms, people don't always perform exactly as you would anticipate. We try and think about that, and we use data to make decisions, which is really important. But we've also got to understand that nuance around the human's reaction to things. And I think this ability of us to become more cognitive flexibly, think about and be able to adapt to our environments is a skill that I think can then be a super skill for other skills to then follow. So, the ability to be able to adapt our behaviors and think in our context is something I would encourage everyone to start building and developing. And let's face it, the asset of the human insight, that's an incredible area. It's more powerful than ever in this world. And we've shown it through COVID, having responses. None of us could have predicted some of this, but we've been able, through the human connection, make responses. So I would encourage all of that skill development. But, I guess I'd say unlearning and cognitive flexibility would be my two favorites in terms of, powering you on to learn some of your other technical skills that are constantly changing every day. So think about learning as an everyday event. Think about taking in your environment and being very intentional about your day, and being very intentional about synthesizing the information that you're taking in and thinking about it, streaming knowledge. And you're learning agility. I think we're teaching ourselves now. We start a leadership course that we run called I Lead in Pearson. We start with the self, and one of the very important skill sets that we absolutely focus on is managing self, and certainly your ability to learn, and how teaching yourself your habits for learning. So, because if you haven't got good habits around learning, then it's very difficult to take on these new skills. So it is getting your foundations right, I think. And as a result of that, we've got a lot of people upskilling and reskilling in Pearson right now, and we've got terrific results, whether it's through self-study, whether it's through on-the-job learning, which I would encourage us to think about, or whether it's attending a university course or an executive program, or working with our partners to upskill in some shape or form. It's a very important thing, and what we've seen is that people are keen to do it. So if we encourage it and we put measures around it, which we have internally here, we will see people take that up. So I think we are starting to break down those barriers, which is really, really exciting, I think, in terms of that. I'd also encourage people to think about their own roles and how what's happening at that layer of automation. Think about the elements of your role that will over time change. I mean, I think there was some level of change. I mean, I read somewhere 100,000, new jobs during COVID, but 975,000 of them changed in some shape or form. So we know our jobs are going to change. So it's about trying to, preempt those changes and think about what are the areas that won't change, or, as Grace said, some of those transferable skills, I think, are important as well. One of the things we also like to say, just a final point on that, is don't be a talent hoarder. In organizations, sometimes we want to keep our best people, but one of the best things we can do is help them to grow and learn. So, letting them go to other areas of the business, thinking about it as a long journey, and, helping them to grow by giving them different experiences is really critical. So lessons on the job, lessons through projects, lessons through mobility, and organizations just keep thinking beyond your own boundaries. Think beyond and your own skill sets, and think about learning in the flow of work. And I think leverage the knowledge and the power around all of you, because there's power in all of us. We have all got skills, we've all got knowledge to share. It's being very intentional about learning as we go through the course of work.
Maybe I just pick up on one point from from Simone, right? And I've seen this also in line with the pandemic, that for many people, you need to learn to prioritize yourself. It's a strange thing to say, but you can only learn when your brain is ready to learn, and sometimes some of us might be experiencing tremendous amount of pressure and stress that does not actually allow us to be in the sweet spot to actually learn, right? At the end of the day, you just find yourself not being able to put anything else in, right? Because you are so slammed with just the reality of work. And if you belong to that category, I would really encourage you to first prioritize getting enough rest, right? Because one of the most important foundational aspects of being able to learn is, first of all, being able to be rested, right? And to focus on that first, so that you create the right environment for you to, if you're going to spend 15 or 20 minutes to learn through a podcast, that you actually have the ability to absorb and to really learn and internalize what you're listening to, right? So while we encourage you to really embrace the sense of learning, I also want to recognize and acknowledge that the pandemic is very real for many of us. And if you're in that situation, find the space to rest so that you can then create the right environment for yourself to learn. And it's one of those, challenges that we experience, right, between doing the things that are urgent and the things that are important, right? But you can do many things by setting aside 15 minutes on learning every day, right? And if you set aside that 15 minutes, and it could be that if you are able to go out for a walk and use that 15 minutes to listen to a podcast in an area that you want to upskill yourself, know that that 15 minutes is going to add to you, right? And that 15 minutes investment multiplied by the number of days in a year actually can really build your expertise.
Great, great. Thanks, Grace. And I think that's a very important lesson, given the fact that we are always talking about that skills are changing so much. We have to inculcate a lot of skills, taking rest and creating that ecosystem where you can, develop that habit of learning every day is of immense importance. Thanks for sharing that. And Grace, I'll stay with you. Simone rightly mentioned a lot of skills that we need to, look prioritize, right from unlearning to certain human skills like collaboration, communication, building the regular habit of learning. I would come back to you and understand what's Accenture's skilling priority right now. What are some of the skills that Accenture is looking forward in their people and the potential candidates they look to hire?
Yeah, so I think it won't be so different, right, from I think what you would hear across the market, and that is the agility and the flexibility to learn and learn fast, right? The ability to a lot of the soft skills that Simone rightfully pointed out that are actually quite hard. We look at all of those aspects, right? Because the learning agility is something that is really critical because while you may come with some strong functional skills and technical skills, and we always will look for people with the relevant functional and technical skills, the ability to want to learn, to be curious, to be able to work with clients, and to be more open to co-creation is really sort of the context to which we operate, right? I think in today's world we see that one of the things that make people successful in Accenture is the ability to collaborate, right? The ability to actually listen to different perspectives, to be able to pull people together to achieve an outcome that's far bigger than the outcome that you can achieve by yourself, is something that really is very very important sort of skills, right? So I think those aspects are quite important for us right now. And I would say the ability to sort of want to grow and want to keep doing better. Always looking for a creative way of approaching problems and solving problems is really important. And I think the other thing that we are starting to also see, and maybe more relevant to, I would say, the Singapore local context, is people who are able to embrace the art of storytelling, right? To really kind of paint the picture around the art of the possible, and to be able to articulate beyond the functional or technical sort of solutions, right? I think those are important skills, which I'm sure a lot of companies are also looking out for.
Sure, sure. Thanks for sharing that, Grace. Um, since now we have been talking about the importance of skilling, what are some of the signs that we should look for while in the talent recovery market, and the importance of continuously building those skills, some of the important skills that employers should prioritize in the current context of work. Simone, I would want to understand, given the fact that you have been working in one of the largest education company who is quite innovating the way skilling is delivered, the way skills are delivered. I want to understand the your perspective that what are some of the gaps that organizations haven't been able to fill up in achieving the impact out of these skillings, and especially if we talk about from the perspective of skilling technologies.
Oh, thank you. And sorry, I missed, my internet went down for 2 seconds. So I hope it's
Yeah,
back now and it's clear. So, and that's one of the joys, isn't it, of working virtually. So I think talent is still a differentiator. And, we've got some incredible technologies around, but it doesn't drive intrinsic motivation. We can have a training course online that is brilliant. And, we're hardwired, I think, in our DNA to really embrace social learning and embrace, that collaborative learning space, that Grace talked about, Accenture is, embracing as well. So there's this sort of deep power and motivation in a shared insight that I think technology just hasn't quite got there. And I was reading recently a book called Restoring the Soul of Business, which the Staying Human in the Age of Digital, which really intrigued me. And I think one of the quotes in there was really interesting to me, because it was kind of saying that if a company is run purely on data and machines, it will quickly fail, because it's those talented people that are programming those machines and making decisions and iterating and responding to the twists and turns that happen in business life. So I think technology is superly important, and it's not an either or conversation. I think, we've really leveraged it during COVID to reach, and it's been a great thing that we've been able to reach lots of audiences. I think technology enables our scalability of learning like we've never seen before. I think if we can, continue to embrace that blended learning and pedagogy, we're realizing that's got plenty to provide. So learning, I think, still needs that live action, particularly I think when we're talking about human skills and that human sensitivity and sensibility of storytelling. I think we still really learn well when we're told stories, and it's been a learning technique for many, many years. And, it creates those moments of empathy and those moments of vulnerability and those moments when we remember, and really our light goes off differently. We light up a different part of our brain, and we know that we need to be really active in our brain to be able to take on information and to learn. So, we know from some of our programs we've leveraged technology. We've done a lot of asynchronous learning, but at the end of the day, when people come together to solve problems as a group, that's when they really get excited, because they're solving problems on behalf of the business. It's creating meaning, and they're learning new networks, and getting big things done through leveraging the global network that they have in a company like Pearson. So it's hugely popular to go on these tiger teams where we've got a problem we want to solve, and people can use their skills to really apply it to something that we're really focused on in Pearson as a problem to solve. Or it might be that you've got an opportunity to work in a group to present to a senior team about a customer issue that we want to solve, or improve our learner experience or a customer experience, which of course we know is very important. So I think there are lots of things we can do, but there's still a role for the humans so far. And it's an incredibly important role. And if we can let technology do some of the lifting, then we can spend our time on some of the executive brain function and those higher order problems that we know our world is facing today.
Thanks. Grace, would you also like to add something to it, given the fact that you are working with one of the forward-looking companies who never shy away from investing in such technologies? So, would
Yeah.
you also like to give your experience about the role of technology in skilling?
Sure. And I think perhaps the angle to build on a lot of what Simone has actually mentioned is that technology can enable the experience, right? And I think in today's world, uh, it, for a lot of firms, we use one sort of main technology to get work done, right? It could be Teams, it could be Zoom, and by the end of the day, people are pretty much either teams out or zoomed out, right? And I think that there are a number of other sort of technologies that you can bring into the mix that would enable a different kind of set of experiences, right? And to the point about learning, a lot of the times, and picking up on Simone's point, right? How do you integrate the the learning into what you do every day, right? So to be able to produce a better work product or to get up to speed on something that's new, if you're working with a new client, for example, right? The ability for an organization to integrate that learning journey into getting you better at what you do becomes a very powerful aspect, right? So we've taken a bit more of an experience lens to thinking about the technology, right? And I think if you think about it from an experience lens, then there are perhaps a few perspectives that might be interesting to consider. The first one is, how do you make it easy, right? Easy for people to get to the knowledge, to get to the people who actually they can have a conversation with, right? Just easy to access, and kind of like almost know that when you're coming to look for information, you're looking for it because you're trying to do a sale, or you're trying to get up to speed on a project which somebody else might have done before. So to actually understand the job to be done and then provide easy access, right? Because if people have 15 minutes, do you want people to be spending 15 minutes trying to figure out what they should be looking for, or actually spending the 15 minutes actually learning or getting new perspectives, right? So the power for technology to make access to the right information or the right learning easy is very important, right? So that's one perspective. The ability to integrate it into the work products is the second perspective, which I talked about, right? So knowing why people need to learn, and helping them to be able to then take that learning and to apply it as much as possible easily. That integration point really does power the meaning of learning. And the last bit, which I kind of like, is how do you make it fun, right? So I think there are also a question. So how do you get people to learn? It's one of those things that sometimes people feel it's dispensable, right? But I think if you can make it fun, right, and social, that in itself kind of sparks that energy, the positivity towards learning not being a chore, but something that you can do together, right? And one of the things that I've often seen that people get very motivated is when they see their own leaders learning and sharing their own learning journey, right? I think people kind of like to know that the leaders are also setting aside a small amount of time to learn, and that they never stop learning, right? And if you can create a very unhierarchical approach towards learning pods and learning journeys, and setting aside time, being very deliberate to say, you know what, we're going to set aside a certain time in a day, right, where we can learn together, right? Because we all need to learn something, and we can do teach back to each other, creating that social and fun environment around learning, right? I think it's a really important way to kind of bring energy to what I would imagine a lot more digital based learning, right? As we continue to work very virtually.
Thanks, Grace. It has been a great conversation, and we have started receiving a lot of audience questions also. So maybe, Grace, Simon, do you have anything to add more to this conversation, or should we move ahead with the audience question?
I think we can move ahead. My cat's very keen to move ahead. So
Sure. And Grace, I will pick up from the concluding point that you mentioned, that technology needs to be a lot of fun when motivating our learners to just keep up the momentum of learning. And we have received one question which is on the same line. The question is from Christine, where she asked that how can we encourage learning in a virtual setup given the classroom training cannot be conducted right now, and how can we instill learning together?
Okay, maybe I'll use an example. When I was still leading the HR teams, right? And we were under tremendous pressure, because I always think of HR as the healthcare workers of an organization, and through COVID, there was just so much that was going on, right? I think what we tried to do was to, along the lines of digital and technology, kind of use a number of different topics and kind of break people up into small groups, right? So that they can learn from each other, right? And we kind of gave people flexibility around when they wanted to meet. But the idea is that, if you, no matter how busy the day is, learning is for yourself, right? You have to invest in yourself, right? So we try to create a little bit of a gamified approach to helping people encourage themselves to focus on different pieces of learning, and that they could learn with each other, right? Sometimes we brought in experts to share a little bit more, and we use a lot more of our existing like town halls to kind of bring in this element of learning, right? So it's not just about the latest things that's happening, but always focus a little segment on learning, right? And we kind of encourage sort of the how people were learning and how they were applying it to their roles, right? So if you're learning more about cloud, how do you apply it to the fact that perhaps you're a talent fulfillment specialist, and how does this knowledge help you to do your job better, right? So I think it's about, like I said, we try to make it fun, right? We try to encourage the spirit of continuous learning. Now, knowing that there'll be days where you might be way too tired to be able to be in that spirit of learning, even though the whole world around you might be, and recognizing it's okay, right? But to create this small learning pods where people can learn together, have some fun, would it's sort of like kind of making sure that priority remains front visible and centered, right? So together with leaders, I think you can create a little bit of that safe space for people to ask questions and feel like it doesn't matter where I'm starting from, right? It doesn't
Mm.
matter as long as I, at the end of the 15 minutes, 20 minutes, have learned something more than I knew before, right? And then that creates the level of encouragement that I can still find time to invest in myself despite being a very busy world.
Mm.
Thanks. Simone, would you
Absolutely.
like to add your inputs?
No, I think great. Grace is absolutely right. It sort of re-emphasizes that point that we love learning together, that it is a process, and if we can think about it, in fun ways and encourage, the opportunity to learn and see it as a critical path for all of us, then I think we change the way it's viewed in the organization. I mean, I was just thinking, I have a little daughter who has special needs, and in terms of she's very challenged by learning. And recently we've put her to do this little game, and she's a secret spy, and I'm a mentor, and we can't tell anyone, and we're learning skills and practicing it. And it's so much fun. I mean, it's costing me a fortune in chocolate frogs, but at the same time, we're making it fun. So she's learning emotion, which is something a little bit tricky for her. So, I think all of us have got challenges around learning, whether and so just recognizing that, I think the gamification piece is absolutely critical, and just accessing learning, and making it fun, absolutely encourages it, because we all love to grow. We all love to know stuff. We all love to, to be able to be good at something. We all need that.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for sharing that. I hope that answers your question, Christine. Now, moving forward to another question, and Simone, Grace, you both actually reflected upon the importance of leader when it comes to delivering your skilling agenda. So, Naomi is asking, how can we get the leaders on board to encourage their teams to take skilling more seriously? How can we get the reporting managers to own this agenda?
It's critical. It's absolutely critical. It's not about managing tasks now. I think it's about, helping people to be much more responsive to their environment. So I think it has to be, we have to think about how we reward. We have to think about our systems of encouragement or recognition, and what we care about. It has to be goals. We have to think about it in a way that puts it on the map, because it's not about the task anymore. We've proven, the tasks are changing and going away, but I think it's about the ability to continually adapt to those new environments is critical. So I think it's an absolute imperative for us to get this on the manager agenda, and as leaders, it's our responsibility in organizations. I think that's our commitment to our teams if we want to retain them. So I go back to that retention. if we want to retain them, then we have to make sure that they want to be with us.
Mm. Uh, to add to that, I think we've done quite a lot of studies and engagement surveys, especially throughout the last couple of years. And one of the things that we consistently see is that people want to keep developing themselves and keep learning. And I always say that if there was only one thing you could do as a leader, right? Of so many different priorities that we ask of people, but there's one thing that you want to focus on with your people with the intention of retaining them and giving them that energy to continue to be motivated. The learning piece is a sure win one, right? And one of the things that every leader can do is to choose to learn together with your people,
Mm,
right? So if there is something that you are prioritizing to learn, and you know that, hey, there is something that I need to stay relevant on, right? By offering to learn together with everyone, it does build new bridges, right? Through knowledge, it does build bridges through the fact that you're being open about the fact that you don't know everything, because none of
mm,
us do, right?
mm,
So I think there are a lot of these very small micro actions that leaders can choose, right? Especially, I think nobody would argue with the fact that trying to retain your best people is important to you, because we all know what it feels like to lose good members of our team. And then we do absolutely everything at that point in time when people want to leave us, when we could be more deliberate about keeping them engaged such that they're not really looking outside, right? So the learning piece is always, time and time and again, through research and data, show that if we only focus on that, right, that one thing, learning together with our people, allowing them to learn what they want to learn versus what we want them to learn, right? I think that in itself is one of the most consistent ways, right? And helping leaders to understand that, and to embrace these micro behavior changes, which is
mm,
all within our reach, right?
mm.
Is perhaps a small step towards a longer sort of change, right? That all leaders need to embrace. Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, I think keeping what are the important skills on the agenda is a really critical
Yeah.
path. And one of the purposes of this session today, and why I think why we're so keen on talking to everybody and understanding, is that I think we can co-create skill paths together. Understanding what are those skills that are really critical in your organizations and in ours, and then we can design programs around those that really make a difference. So I think we're currently at the moment, through this organization, got to have a survey out around those power skills and just understanding what's on the agendas for people at the moment. So we'd love to hear from anybody in the audience, because I think that co-creation and sharing piece is so important, and it helps us all create better solutions. Because I think we we have to look at this talent agenda as a very big agenda across the world. We've got some big problems to solve, and we need really intelligent people to solve those within our organizations, within our countries, and within our world. So I'd love to hear from the audience if they have the opportunity to do that survey, because I think that does help to help us to prioritize those skills that we know are important to everyone out there. So that would be terrific as well.
Great. Thanks, Simone and Grace, for adding your perspective to this question. And unfortunately, due to the paucity of time, we'll be able to take only one more question. So I'll take Adi's question, wherein he's asking, how do you think the pandemic has changed the talent landscape, particularly the talent skilling, and how should we HR professional adapt to these changes? I mean, we have been talking a lot about these talent landscape, but Grace and Simon, I would like to like you both to reflect on the some changes that HR, as an HR professional, they should adapt.
Yeah, maybe I'll just talk on one element, and that is to understand that all parts of HR need to come together to solve this problem, right? It isn't just a learning problem or a talent problem. It is really working together with business leaders to change the way we think about the talent that we have internally and the talent that we're looking outside. To be more open to not finding perfect talents, right? For a start, to then putting together, upskilling programs at speed and at scale to be able to enable the most critical skills to be learned through, finding the right people who have adjacent skills and that could really scale up really fast. And then embracing the fact that learning on the job is a reality, right? So all of those are actually mindset shifts that HR professionals need to enable. And it isn't about the learning person going on their own merry way to think about this problem. It's about the HR business partner and the learning person and the recruiting person coming together to solve this in an integrated way, right? So that is incumbent on HR professionals to think differently about how we solve the problem.
I couldn't agree with you more, Grace. I think it is a systems problem, and we do have to treat it as a systems problem and understand how change in one area needs to interface and change in another. And, we've brought out some of the challenges around job design in this conversation and how we've had quite a fixed job design. So we really need to think about our org design in this area as well, and all the other elements that go up to make up an HR function. We cover a lot of ground in HR. So I think it is about understanding and taking a systems view approach. And that's beyond even the organization. It's at a partner level, it's in the ecosystem broadly, it's helping, to leverage governments and others that are also interested in this, trying to solve this problem around the talent crunch.
Perfect. Thanks, Yvonne and Grace, for adding your perspective to the questions that our audience has asked. Those were really wonderful questions. And we have received a few more questions, but due to the paucity of time, we wouldn't be able to take it right now. But we'll try and get those questions answered offline. Uh, and thank you so much, Grace and Simon, for sharing those insights and a lot of learning for sure for our audience. Um, and with that, I would like to conclude this session. And it has been a great discussion. That's truly the need of hour. This topic is of a great significance and is critical right now in the flow of work that we are going through. So thank you so much. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our partners Pearson, who helped us in stitching the entire content for this session. um, with that, I would close this session. And before I close the session, I am delighted to inform our audience that People Matters and Pearson is conducting a 2021 survey on the power skills. And I am excited to invite you all to participate and help us identify the hiring and upskilling priorities of employers in Asia Pacific. You can find the link of the survey in the chat section. We would really look forward to your responses to the survey, and we will come up with the entire report on the power skills in the month of October. And with this, we'll close this session today. It has been a great pleasure hosting you all. Thanks, Grace, and thanks, Simone, for taking your time out for this session and helping us with all your experience and insights. To our audience, do stay tuned to more information in your inbox with respect to upcoming events and virtual learning sessions. And have a great day ahead and stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.